Okay.
It's time for Zeb at the Ranch with your host Zeb Bell and newsworthy and noteworthy John Ellis. This podcast will always be brutally honest with integrity and honesty and without low-class, no-class cursing that's in vogue today with illiterate politicians. Now, Zeb at the Ranch.
Oh my, a rainy Wednesday right now, and good afternoon, Zeb at the Ranch, and of course our podcast, episode number 5. And we're glad to have you with us. And by the way, if you'd like to be a part of our podcast and share your thoughts, etc., don't forget, go to zebattheranch@hotmail.com, send me notes, and be sure and tell your friends and neighbors how to tune in, zebbell.com, and tune us in. We're on both audio and video during the podcast. And also, if you'd like the Zeb Bell blog that we send out every week, Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, same thing. Go to zebbell.com. You'll see where to put your address, and we'll get it to you. I like to start with a famous quotation, and I found this one, and it's so applicable to me. Listen carefully. Please note that I am self-employed. So if you see me on my own, talking to myself, please do not disturb me because I'm having a staff meeting. My buddy and cohort in crime, John Ellis, how are you today?
Oh my gosh, I have staff meetings all the time. My wife thinks I'm crazy.
Well, yeah, but you went out in the garage and talked to yourself and found out you're normal. How are you?
Hey, dang good, actually, yeah.
I got to tell you that you and I are both Christians,
yes,
and proud of it.
Yep.
And I will always stand up for that. Last Friday, we had a chance. We were sitting here in the office, Deanne and I, and we decided it was time to get out of Dodge City for a while. And I said, jump in the truck, let's go for a ride. And aimlessly, we just headed down the road, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go up on the mountain. And we took off and drove and got up on top of the mountain, and it was a chance to really sit back and see the handiwork of God. It was so beautiful on a no clouds day, the sunshine, crisp temperatures, leaves like I wrote in my blog of the pinks and the yellows and the greens and the reds and everything.
Yep.
And I've always said that a lot of people don't refer to it this way, but God was the owner of the first construction company because he built everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it was beautiful.
Yeah, people think I'm schizophrenic when it comes to outdoors because I hate to be outside. The sun singes. I'm a vampire. Everybody knows that, except for backpacking or camping.
Really?
Get me into a forest where there's lakes, trees, that type of things. Throw me in a hammock, and I'm one of the happiest campers you're ever going to meet.
It was so serene, and the ride up there, the curvy winding of the road and the leaves falling down on the top of my pickup. We went really slow, and the colorization that was going on for the fall colors and the wildlife. I mean, how can anybody look at that or drive through it and think that all came from a rock?
Oh, yeah. I never have understood that. You know, you could get rid of the Bible, you could get rid of any religious teachings you want to, but as soon as you show me DNA,
yeah,
there's a creator.
There you go.
Period.
Have you had a chance to see the fall colors?
Well, I have. I'm not quite in love with fall as much as you or my wife is. That's probably her favorite season. Mine is more like spring or summer. That type of thing. So, but I do enjoy the fall. I'm a green guy. I like the green leaves. I think green is God's favorite color. I could be wrong. I'm not speaking gospel here, but I think it is.
Well, I am not espousing my love for the fall. Mm-hmm. I think it's beautiful, and I enjoy the fall colors and everything because I know what's going to lead to after the fall, and I don't like that at all.
Yeah. Now, when I worked at the post office, I preferred winter over summer because in the summer you can only take so many clothes off and then they arrest you. But in the winter you can continue to put clothes on. You know what I mean? So
let's not get into that subject. You know, I want to tell you something about our world and all the tumultuous situations that we're going through right now. I mentioned this to you before we went on the air this afternoon. And I had a chance to pick up a newscast that was on a couple of days ago. And there was a young former Army veteran that was being interviewed, and now he is a student at SMU, Southern Methodist University down in Texas. And he made a statement that really is so true about our education system today, and it's fallen through the cracks. And he said, quote, "Our schools are making activists instead of Americans."
Oh, yeah.
Boy, is that hitting the nail through the board.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I think it's getting progressively worse. But I do see hope for the current generation right now. And especially, and I hate to keep referring back to Charlie Kirk. He's a wonderful individual. But I think what happened to him is starting to cause something to happen in this country that hopefully tips the tide.
More than a ripple effect. It's a wave.
Oh, yeah, it's a wave. Yeah,
It's a
definitely.
wave.
If that wave can just go, I think it will be a good thing for our country.
But that's part of God's plan,
Right.
perhaps.
Yep.
And what we're seeing on our education system, and we talked about this also a little bit earlier, is the fact that we, the United States of America, we are allowing foreign students to come into our country, study at the various higher education levels, Harvard, USC, whatever the case might be, and then go out on the street corner and organize all these rallies of anarchy against our country. I say, boot them out of here, and I don't care who's offended by that.
Well, I'm a big proponent of free speech. I think that, and not just being able to talk about the weather, but hard things. But here's the thing. If my wife wants to exercise free speech in our house and call me all manner of names, she has that right. She is in my house. She's part of our family. But if you're a guest in my house,
That's right.
you don't behave yourself, you can get out. That's all I got to say.
Why does the Democratic Party, and I'm looking at an editorial that was in our paper locally about 10 days, 2 weeks ago, why does the left think that these people that are from another country and have citizenship in another country have the right to come in and completely cause chaos, anarchy, protests? No, they don't have that right. They're not under our First Amendment as far as I'm concerned.
No, they're not. And here's the thing. They're schizophrenic because they'll sit here and just pound the table and swear to the Constitution and say these people have the right to free speech. But then when it comes to Charlie Kirk, an actual resident of the United States, we got to shut him up.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Talk a little bit about this because we're doing this on Wednesday, and yesterday was a very important day. It was Charlie Kirk's supposedly going to be 32nd birthday.
Yep.
And President Trump had a great big venue planned at the White House that went off without a hitch, and lots of people to celebrate his President Trump giving Charlie Kirk posthumously the American Medal of Freedom.
Right.
And I was taken aback by, again, his wife with the poise and the professionalism and personality that she exudes.
She's incredible.
She's something else.
Yeah, she's incredible.
But along with that, Turning Point USA, this is just growing in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, yep, it is growing. That was something else, and I had to listen to President Trump's remarks, and he's talking about maybe asking her if we could postpone this event because he's over in the Middle East getting his peace deal done. Yeah. But then he realized this was Charlie Kirk's birthday, and he basically just said, I'm not going to miss this for the world. So whatever differences I have with President Trump, man, that guy's got character,
And tenacity.
Tenacity, yep.
Yeah.
He's got everything you need. Yep.
Yeah. I was very heartened by some of the interviews of the Turning Point USA people. And looking back over the last week since we did our last broadcast, there's been other colleges that have had a Turning Point USA gathering, if you will. Thousands and thousands of young people that are turning out and being more than open with the press to sit there and say, I came here because I'm very interested in a new approach in my life to get back to religion, to get back to honoring possibly the Ten Commandments and the value of the Ten Commandments, and being a very proud American.
Yeah, it's funny that he posthumously is packing arenas even better than a sporting event.
Yeah.
That's a change.
Oh, by far.
That's a change in our character and our fabric,
What do you see when, and what do you think is going to happen, John, with the left? I said this a week ago on our program, our podcast, and I honestly believe it's true, that every day that goes on, and there's literally hundreds of thousands of young people that are becoming more involved. They've applied for chapters of Turning Point USA.
Oh, yeah.
Family members. Everybody is starting to go back to church and everything. And I look over on the left, and I see these people, and I'm going to use this term, like cornered rats. Yeah. And they're going to fight and strike out at anything to try to stop this movement. What are your thoughts?
Well, you see the left who carries the banner of diversity and inclusion and acceptance, and they're filing, I don't know what they're called. They're trying to keep these campuses from having these chapters of Turning Point USA on them. You can't claim diversity and inclusion if you're trying to exclude people.
That's right.
How can you?
That's right.
I don't understand that.
What do you see down the road as far as in the next 6 months, past Christmas, going into the spring? I mean, there seems to be, in my opinion, a resurgence of value in this country. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I hope so.
Me too.
I'm not a prophet. I can't see into the future, but like you say, it's not a ripple that happened here. It is a wave, and so hopefully God just takes that wave and pushes it forward, and we can turn our hearts back to Him.
When we talked about Donald Trump originally, way back in 2015, 16, and 17, leading up to 18.
Oh yeah,
a lot of people, and I was one of them, was a little bit more than cautious about his personality and past record, etc. I've got to say this, and I will stand behind this. I've never seen in my lifetime a president and administration that have taken literally the bull by the horns, whether it's for world peace, the stoppage of 8 different conflicts right now, and the latest one, of course, right there in Gaza, the stoppage of illegal aliens coming into our country, the stoppage of the, not all the way, naturally, but the bulk stoppage of all the drugs and the fentanyl coming into our country. This administration should be revered, and the American public should be proud of them.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I remember the first debate. I think there was, 21 people on there?
Well, they were the audience, and the ones out in the audience, there were hardly anybody out there.
I disliked President Trump immensely at that point. I just thought he was a big phony and all that. And as they whittled it down, I didn't see any path for him to become president. I couldn't think of anybody that would vote for him. And then they did, and he got in his first term, which was debatable. But his second term, and I think, and I could be wrong, it was at that moment when the attempted assassination almost killed him and grazed his ear. I think something changed, and he's become quite a great leader at this point.
Butler, Pennsylvania was a Turning Point USA.
Yep.
It was.
Yep.
And I think the man changed. I have talked to people that it worked for Trump. I have talked to people that now work for Trump.
Yep.
One of which used to be on my program every week on Mondays.
Yeah.
And there is a distinct change in attitude and personality.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. He's much more of a real person. His heart is tender. You can see that he breaks down almost in crying with these things that are going on with the Charlie Kirk celebrations and whatnot, So I think he's a changed person from that.
But when you look at where we are right now, John, and I'm so glad that we had this podcast on Wednesdays, because midweek you're going to see a lot of the tumultuous events start on Monday, and they're going to try to go all the way through Friday in the news media, et cetera.
Yeah.
And we're looking at a government shutdown now entering, its third week.
Yeah.
And I don't see any sense or common sense coming out of the halls of Congress on the left side of the aisle that would shut down a government and create havoc among the American people. And then the next voting election, they're going to ask for those votes and tell everybody, hey, we've changed. We're good guys now.
Yeah, there's so many ways I can go with this. But in both parties do this, they'll shut the government down. They'll be blamed for it, whether they're responsible for it or not. I think in the current situation where they just have that continuing resolution and then with an add-on for security for some of Congress or whatever,
right,
that everybody's in agreement on, there's no reason why they couldn't pass it. But here's what really just gripes me, and I hate to sound like beating a dead horse. I don't know why the Senate has imposed this supermajority rule on themselves. It's stupid.
Yeah.
They can solve this tonight.
50 plus 1.
50 plus 1, get it done. If your policies are that great, why are you afraid to pass them?
Yeah.
You're looking for an excuse by saying, oh, the Democrats wouldn't let us do it. No, the Republicans are not letting us do that by keeping this stupid rule in place.
We mentioned on previous episodes of Zev at the Ranch, and I'd like to go over it again, and I'll use this word, cowardice of our politicians. And a lot of people say, well, they're not cowards. Well, they are cowards.
Yep.
And the reason they're being cowardly over these situations, they're playing the old CYA tactic of, I want to make sure I stay in my cushy job with my office here at Washington, D.C., and all the amenities that go with it. And that's why they're cowards. They don't want to put their neck out to really help the American people because they might not get reelected.
Right. You can safely say, look, I was in favor of this, I was in favor of that, but gosh darn it, the Democrats just wouldn't let us do that.
Yeah.
That's malarkey.
Yeah.
Get that rule changed. It's not in the Constitution. Get back to the Constitution, and if your policies are that great, and this applies to the right and the left, or anybody else, if your policies are that great, get them passed, let us see it. And if it's great, then the people will vote for that. If it's not, they won't.
Look at the people that are going to be suffering because of this government shutdown. Today, by the way, is the deadline, being the 15th, and a lot of people are not going to get their checks. Conversely, there's a lot of people, quite frankly, with this shutdown that don't deserve the checks, and I'm glad that their jobs might be eliminated. Am I too harsh?
No, not at all. And I think the one of the things that's bothered me all about these government shutdowns is they'll shut it down, all these people go home, and then when they come back, they get all their back pay. There's literally no incentive for them to say, get it done. In fact, it's a disincentive. Wouldn't you want to stay home and get paid?
Yeah.
I would say if there's a government shutdown and it affects you, I'm sorry, but you're not getting a paycheck and you're not getting back pay. You'll get paid again when you go back to work. Now, if you want to use leave, vacation leave or whatever, that's fine. But you're not getting paid for it, and that put a little pressure on getting the job done.
Well, and the terminology, and I want you to discuss this with me a little bit. We've heard this probably in every newscast over the last 14 days. Non-essential employees.
Oh, yeah, I
if
love
they're
that.
non-essential, for Pete's sakes, why did they get hired in the first place?
Yeah, I love that. And a lot of them, are like for example, statisticians, we don't need some of that stuff. If you look at what the Constitution outlines to run the country, we could get by with about 10% of what's happening right now.
Amen. But the cutbacks that Trump is going to impose, and I say going to, I mean, it's not past tense, it's present tense, and he probably will, his administration.
Yeah.
We need those cutbacks.
Yeah.
Why in the world should we as taxpayers keep paying all these literally millions, trillions, and billions to people that are just deadbeats and dead weight on our economy?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. I am so in favor of that. In fact, he's the first president to actually take advantage of a shutdown by using the reduction in force, the RIFs and so forth, to do actual cuts. And so he's making gold out of manure, and I love that.
Yeah. Let's go to the situation that's going to happen this weekend in Washington, D.C. on Saturday. And it's going to be the so-called No Kings March.
Oh, brother.
I find that to be another nail in the coffin for the Democratic Party. They think that it's going to be a glorious event. They think that it's going to promote them to the American public. They think that by teaming up with the LGBT and the transgenders and all the left loonies and everything, that they're going to garner the support of the American public in what they're trying to promote. I think it's going to be, like I mentioned a moment ago, another nail in the Democratic coffin.
Well, I hope so. This No Kings thing is ridiculous because, they tie it to Trump and his executive orders and his strong leadership. And yet, didn't we have that with Obama, strong leadership, and Clinton, strong leadership? And I would say Biden, but of course we didn't have any strong leadership with Biden.
Biden? Who was Biden? There's that man walking down the hall there. Yeah.
So if Biden puts in an executive order, why do we not consider him a king? This is a straw man argument. They're just painting a name on the guy. Oh, he's acting like a king, and we don't have kings in this country. Well, he's not acting like a king. He's acting like a president.
Where do they come up with this terminology? The No King's March, or we've got to stop Trump now because we're losing our democracy. These are such frivolous and stupid arguments that make no sense. If people really would pick up their Funkenwagnall dictionary or Webster's, either or, and really understand the terminology, and then tell me what he is doing that's destroying our democracy.
Right. Well, you've just covered a whole lot of things in that one little sentence. But let's get to the democracy part, because we are not a democracy. A pure democracy is hell.
That's exactly right.
They can take away your right to free speech with 50 plus 1% vote. We're a democratic republic. Yes, and I thank God for that,
Yep.
But,
How many times do you hear people say that on newscasts? They never, ever mention it.
I know it. It drives me crazy. And if I hear it to anybody in public, I'm quick to remind them, we are not a democracy.
That's right.
People think a democracy is a good thing. Well, it can be if it's tied to a Republican form of government where you have rights that are guaranteed, that cannot be overturned with a simple majority vote. And then the rest of it's done with a majority vote. That's fine. But a pure democracy, that is terrible. It's the worst form of government there is.
The lunacy of sitting there and going up on a stage in front of what they think are going to be millions of people are going to celebrate the No King's March. And say that we're losing our democracy and that Trump is destroying America. Stop right there. And this is where I mentioned to you, I think on the first podcast, I bear a lot of the responsibility about where we are and why we're not gaining any headway on the media. The media never takes and asks questions of whether it's Schumer or whether it's Swalwell or whether it's AOC. When you say that, explain. Why do you think that he is, and how is he destroying our so-called democracy?
Yep.
They don't follow up.
Yeah. Yeah, they tell you a ridiculous thing like he's trying to strip away rights and so forth. He's attacking, he's homophobic. He's attacking the LGBT crowd. He's attacking everything. But he's not. He's probably the most rights-favored president that we've had in a long time. He's appealed to the people that would be considered on the left and wanted to work with them, So I don't see it that way. He's certainly not a king. He's not a Nazi. He's not a fascist. He's just a strong president that's got a strong will. He's got a heck of an ego, too. There's no getting around that. But isn't that what we need?
Well, and that in accordance with what I would say, and I'll stand up and argue this with anybody, I personally think, after studying all the members of his cabinet, I think he, Donald Trump, has the best, most forward-thinking cabinet that we've had in politics in a long time. That's the way I feel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and here's the thing. With his cabinet he picks the people that are best suited for the job. That will be loyal to him. That's a mistake he experienced his first presidency, is disloyalty. But he's got these people in the cabinet that are loyal to him, that are good at their job. But then you look at it, he's also got one of the most diverse when it comes to, color or whatever, cabinets of anybody. Why didn't Biden hire, a Hispanic for this or a Latino for that? And yet Trump did. He doesn't care what color you are. He wants the best people for the job.
The Democrats still have their major mouthpiece that is turned into a crybaby, and that's Barack Obama. I want to go back, John, and you were working with me back in 2017, prior to that election.
Yep.
And I made statements about Obama, not anything about his race, his skin color, or anything else, but it was about his policies. And I didn't like him from the get-go, and I like him even less now. I think he will go down in the annals of history as being one of the most destructive and non-producing presidents that we've ever had. Your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it has nothing to. For example, and I was there for that. I remember that. It doesn't have anything to do with their skin color. There's plenty of people. Who's that running for governor? Oh, I can't remember who it is. Winsome Earl Sears?
Winsome Sears, yes.
Wonderful woman.
Yes.
Great ideas.
Very intelligent.
I would vote for her in a heartbeat.
Me too.
I don't care what color she is. She's the right person for the job.
Well, back in 17, if you'll recall the circumstances, who on the Republican ticket was really seriously thinking about getting in the race and running against Obama?
I believe that was Condoleezza Rice.
Condoleezza Rice. And the last time I checked, she's still black.
Yeah, she is now. Some of her views have gotten worse over years. They've aged not so well. But, that's a perfect example. We don't look at color. We want the best person
That's
for the
right.
job. I don't care if they're pink, purple. I don't care if they're transgender, to be honest with you. If they're going to fight for liberty and freedom and go by the Constitution and serve this country well and get rid of this nonsense in the schools where we're indoctrinating instead of teaching, I can stand behind anybody.
And interestingly enough, one of the flag bearers for Common Sense on the left side of the aisle, which there are very few, I guess you could say they're organizing a one-horse parade, John Fetterman.
I never thought
I am absolutely astounded by this guy.
I like him.
I do too.
I don't like all his policies, but I like the fact that he seems very genuine. He believes what he believes, and he doesn't want to get into all this nonsense and theater. He just wants to do what he thinks is the right thing. And I like the guy. I didn't used to, but I like him now. It's like Bill Maher. Didn't used to like Bill Maher. I'm getting to like him a lot more.
Well,
he calls out the left every single day.
no, I agree with that. It's just that I don't like his mode of approach to the public with the bad language and everything else.
Well, that's true. He does have a foul mouth, and that's part of the whole shtick or whatever. But think of the fact that he was invited to the White House and actually accepted the invitation and spoke highly of the president when he came out.
It took a lot of courage to do what he did.
And that's what I appreciate. If your person is honest and just does what they believe, and you don't have to try to figure out what they're saying, I like them.
And talking about Bill Maher and others, but Fetterman came right out and gave accolades the minute that the peace treaty, per se, was signed, and the potentiality of getting the hostages out of Gaza, etc. I really give him kudos. But what really shocked me was Bill and Hillary Clinton also gave kudos to Donald Trump, as did some others on the left side of the aisle.
Yeah.
But Obama, going back to him,
Yeah.
not a word.
Nope. And the others, like Bill and Hillary Clinton, boy, that had to hurt.
Oh, I'll bet you Hillary is still taking a shower.
But Obama doesn't surprise me. My wife calls him old puffy cheeks because he bounces up the stairs to get to the platform, and when he talks, his cheeks are puffy, and you can just see he's really in love with himself and thinks he's wonderful.
Have you ever listened to the guy? Like, he was doing a podcast here not too long ago, talking about Obama, and sitting there, and he has a terrible time trying to express himself.
Yeah.
He is absolutely stopping and dead air, and then he tries to over-enunciate his words. I guess he thinks he's powerful in doing that. I think the man is a clown and a buffoon.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of him. I don't like his policies, for one thing, and I don't really like his character. But, I still pray for the man and say, God help him. If he can be saved, that's a wonderful thing.
Your point's well taken, because during his administration, I can honestly say that I had no like for Obama and what he was trying to do with Obamacare, et cetera, which is coming back and roosting in the rafters right now and hurting a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I absolutely, as a Christian, had to pray for him, because if I prayed for him and his success, it would have been successful for the country and myself.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yep. It doesn't hurt to pray for success, God's success.
Absolutely, which it seems like is going by the wayside.
Yep.
Speaking of which, in just a very few minutes, as a matter of fact, 1 minute, we're going to go to Tennessee, the volunteer state, and we're going to have our dear friend, Pastor Alex Lissau, with us in just a moment. I want to take just a moment and reiterate, and John, I want you to help me on this. If people want to tune in to our podcast, I'll let you this time tell everybody how to do it.
Well, it's very simple. All you got to do is open a web browser and go to zebbell.com. It's one word, zebbell.com. Right there on the home page. I'll have that loaded up this afternoon for next week's episode, and you can see this week's right below it. We'll keep that one handy. And if you want to look at anything that's done before, just look on the left-hand side, and you can see the broadcast archives. Just go there, and you can watch whatever you want.
Absolutely. Now, talk about the blog, Cow Pies and Coffee Cups. How did they sign up for that?
That one's just as easy. Just go to zebbell.com, right there on the homepage. Look to the left. There's a little graphic down below on the left-hand side where you can sign up for the weekly newsletter. I can't remember the exact wording, but it's big. It's easy to see. Just click there. It takes you to the contact page. put in your email address, send it to us, and we'll add you to the list, and you can get Zeb's rantings and ravings every week.
Yes, especially about the beautiful fall colors this last week.
Yeah.
And then also, if they have any comments or anything they'd like to alert us to, just go to zebAtTheRanch@hotmail.com. Now, that is Zeb at, and the first at is the word,
Yes.
AT.
Yes.
And then after the word ranch, Zeb at the Ranch, then the @hotmail.com.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's take our call, and I'm going to hit this button. Now, this is all going to be interesting to see if I don't mess up. Good afternoon to a new member of the volunteer state, Pastor Alex Lissau. How are you, my friend?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good to hear from you, and good show.
Thank you very much. Alex, tell us about the trials and tribulations you had going cross-country all the way to Tennessee, and once you got there, you had to live in a pup tent.
Yeah, well, trials and tribulations are, some, obviously, you can't have a couple of things happen. A flat tire, had to stop into a U-Haul place to get that flat tire on our car carrier fixed before we could continue traveling across the state. And of course, we had to drive through the southern part of Texas, which, Texas has got a great reputation. But boy, I'll tell you what, it is hot and dry and deserty, and a lot of traffic. A lot of people have moved there, so it's quite an interesting experience driving through that state, especially during rush hour.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
We had a good process and good time through there, and basically, it went relatively smoothly, I have to admit. The only frustration you have with it is, it takes time, and some of the roads today in America across the southern part of the United States are not very good roads anymore. They're rough and broken up in some places, and chunks missing in some places, and so that we had some interesting experiences with worrying about the trailer connection and those kinds of things, because some of the roads were really pretty bad. And it's kind of an example of what's happened to us in terms of priorities in America, and I think the priorities which are important for travel especially.
Let me ask you this. You're back there in Tennessee and waiting patiently to get into your brand new home, and that's why we have a still photo of you up on the screen. And I might mention that next week we're going to have you basically in front of the computer, and we'll be able to see your smiling face and check and see whether you brushed your teeth in the morning.
Well, that is my earnest prayer. That's my earnest prayer. We are in our home. Yesterday, we unloaded one giant trailer and into another giant trailer. And so it was an all-day move and out of one trailer into another. And then we got to the house and we unloaded everything. And so we were from about, we had some interesting experiences getting connected and being able to get into the rental trailer that we were using, because of the computer world is not that smooth running form of communication process. We had numerous repetitive efforts to try to get it to work. It finally did work after about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours of wasted time. But we finally got everything moved into the trailers and into the house. And now I'm sitting here right now speaking to you two gentlemen back in the lovely state of Idaho. And at the same time, I'm looking at a massive morass of confusion. And I mean, if you want to see a pile of stuff and you wonder where did this stuff come from? Who had it, and why do we have it? And there, my wife is going in the back. She wants to have a bonfire. And,
well, let me start things off by asking you this. You and I, for transparency, we talked a couple of days ago, and I asked you some of the subject matter that you might be interested in talking about on this week's podcast, and you mentioned the two words mass resistance. And yeah. I'd like you to start off this afternoon by explaining that, and then John and I will chime in with some questions.
Well, this organization called Mass Resistance, they've been involved in looking at the resistance of those things which are coming against what you would call conservative values, moral values, etc. And they took a deep look into what was going on, and they were surprised to find in this deep, deep red state of Oklahoma that many of the school libraries feature different kinds of materials that feature grooming and pornography kinds of things. And what it does is it recognizes that there is no immunity, as far as I'm concerned, anywhere, no matter how conservative the states are. And of course, Oklahoma has a great reputation for being a moral, Bible Belt kind of a state. The governor was shocked when they wound up getting this disclosure of what was happening and what was going on. And so now he's got this all-out effort to research all of the libraries in the state, in schools and otherwise, to determine what's going on with that. And I think that that's an issue that we really need to be concerned everywhere in our country, because we've essentially allowed a kind of an open range, open process in these libraries, whether they're state run or whether they're school run. People bringing in materials and so on and so forth that we don't evaluate in terms of morality or how they apply or to what age groups they're available to and those kinds of things. And I think that's a real issue for the church is you're on one end of the spectrum, we're preaching the gospel and salvation, and we're trying to live a life according to what Jesus calls us to live. And his words to us is, to strive to be perfect because your Father in heaven is perfect. And we all know that we're never going to achieve that level, but the objective is to strive toward it, to continue to try to be as good a people as we can be, to be loving, compassionate, understanding, and all those kinds of things. And yet at the same time, what's going on the other side of the aisle is stuff that we don't see or experience. And so from one standpoint, it's a good thing that we're seeing that this exposure has been laid out. From the other standpoint is we've got quite a job, I think, everywhere to make sure that we are not manipulating the minds of our young people with kinds of things that would groom them towards some of the most subjective kinds of things that we would not want them to be involved with.
Let's go back, and I'm going to jump in, and John's got some questions also, but let's go back when you and I were in school, be it grade school, be it junior high or high school. None, and I'll stand behind this statement, and somebody wants to prove me wrong, you go ahead. None of the materials that we're talking about today that are on the bookshelves in libraries would have even been allowed to be taken out of a box and put on the shelves when you and I were in school.
We had to have a signed permission slip to read the book 1984 by
That's
George
right.
Orwell.
I agree with that. Yep.
Yeah,
I agree with that. How and why, Alex, have we as a population in this great United States of America, why have we taken the word morality and put it in the trash can and put the lid on after we started it on fire?
Well, I think the secular side of the house, the whole concept of evolution and the teaching of that in the school systems and the whole idea that there is no God is something that's being pushed by a large number of those people that are quote unquote educational intellectuals. And, the argument is that it is a fantasy and therefore that doesn't reach the issue of reality. And so why would we allow our children to have to deal with those kinds of things? And so we've kind of pushed the religious issues off to the side. I remember some years ago, there was a real big issue that was raised about how textbooks and school books were published and developed and how they were being distributed, and that there really wasn't any strong moral evaluation of the quality and the character of the kind of materials that were being put into the educational system. And of course, that they taught that for a long time they were starting to teach about human sexuality in classes, and they would get into where they would use various paraphernalia and various kinds of examples that were really that you'd have to say were really on the very verge of pornography if you really wanted to get down into it. I know that when I was in high school, of course, it's 60 years ago now, but what you do is I look back to that particular time, and some would say that I never saw you Alex, in a library in my entire year in high school, and that's very possible. But I did go to the library once in a while. Once in a while, because it was the closest restroom in the hallway. I don't. I'm not trying to be funny. I am trying to be funny. But the point is, when the library was a place that you went to study. Everybody was quiet in there. You had the resources and so on and so forth. Interestingly enough, when I was in seminary, I was doing some different kinds of jobs. For the latter part of my time in seminary, I worked as the manager of the rescue mission, men's rescue mission. And that was a great opportunity to use my ministry education and training that I was getting in seminary with a whole bunch of young men and older men who were in the process of various kinds of addictions. And so it gave me an opportunity to preach the gospel and be a compassionate, understanding individual for them. But for a short period of time, I was also a janitor at a major university in that area. Because it provided benefits, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that was atrocious to me is that the amount of free-flowing pornography that existed in the various dormitories, especially the male dormitories. But interestingly also, I had a period of time in which I was responsible for a section of the university library. And you would be surprised what I would find a young man and a young woman doing in the aisles between certain books in the evenings. And it was a sickening experience to me. In fact, I even went to management and said, I'm a seminary student. I'm working here to get provide for help to support my family, my wife, because she's not the only one that should be providing an income. And the guy felt so bad for me that he moved me to another position, another place to do work. But what was enormously depressing to me was that this stuff was allowed to go on, and no one did anything about it. No one did anything to stop it.
Yeah.
So times have changed dramatically. And I mean, I was in my 50s when I was in seminary, so that's 30 years ago. Now you look back to what's going on today, and it's even worse than it was then.
Yeah.
How do we turn this thing around? I'm looking at our problems in society like a big bus that is barreling towards the Snake River Canyon, which is only a mile north of me, at 75 miles an hour. And if we don't turn it, it's going to go over and we're all going to go down the drain. How do we turn this thing around? How do we get the pornography? How do we get this out of our schools? How do we change it now that it's, I hate to use the word, established in our schools?
Zeb, that's a question that I think fits in the category of the eternal search for the one right truth. Because I think one of the major problems in our time is, where do we find the answers to the problems that we currently have?
Yep.
We've allowed these things to fester to the point where they are almost insurmountable. And I don't want to be, unfortunately, I know I sound negative. I don't want to be that way. But at the same time, I see a sense of reality to us is, how do we change what has been so prolifically passed around and driven? And how do we sit down with, I think there are various organizations that are doing everything that they can right now, but I think we need to do even more in terms of outreach and getting out there. Yes, there are a lot of young people we're seeing. The Gen X's are starting to move toward organized kinds of religion and that sort of thing. And I think that's good in one sense, but then on the other side, how do you measure the percentages of what is happening that's improving and what is happening that is not? And where do we stand in the measuring? When I set the scales, how much weight is in one side or the other? So where do I put my focus? I think every one of us that is a person of faith, a person of responsibility, a conservative individual, person that wants morality in our society, I think every single one of us need to take that extra step to ensure those people who we are with, who are our children, our grandchildren, our relatives, our friends, and to ensure that they recognize and see what's going on, and that they have being introduced to the things that mean value and purpose.
There's two things I'd say about this, Alex, Pastor, is that first of all, from the spiritual perspective, we need to be, regardless of laws or anything else that's passed, we just need to be a light to the people
Yeah,
around us. But the second
exactly.
practical thing, and it's a movement that's been going on that people are fighting less against, and that's the school voucher thing. If you can take your son or your daughter and put them in any school that you want and not be penalized for that, where you can use that tax money, and it galls me to say that because I'm a libertarian, but in any case, if you can use that tax money to send your student anywhere you want to, not just a public school, it will solve itself. Because I know for a fact my parents would say, Johnny, we're not going to throw you in the cesspool. We're going to take you over here to this nice Christian school that's going to teach you morals and teach you things that are right. And pretty soon you've got all these places that are teaching kids the way they ought to be taught. And that will roll up into the universities and help at that point right there. But as a practical solution, I see that as a big one right there.
Well, I agree with you, John. I think that, and to me, I believe that is one part of a greater effort that needs to be exacted by all of us that want to see a change to the better side of humanity. But here's another point. And I hate to say this, but I do have experience in this based upon my previous experience as a pastor of a congregation where our kids were involved in secular versus non-secular schools, private schools, Christian schools, and there's differences in some of those schools, yes. But some of those schools still experience the same problems. They don't have the pornography in the library. They don't have those kinds of issues, but there's still an issue with the fact that some of these students come to school with an attitude that is inappropriate. And it's inappropriate because what is being taught in the school, what is being professed in the school, is not being upheld or taught in the home. Maybe nothing is being taught in the home because the child gets there. There's no interaction with the parents. No one ever asks the questions, what did you learn today, Johnny? And nobody wants to go down through the process of finding out what's going on. So we have those issues. And I'm not, again, I don't want to be negative to the point where I don't think that there's value in private schools and being able to use our vouchers to do those kinds of things. And I agree, the more of those kids going to those schools, the better for them. Even those that are troublesome are going to get a better education than they would be in a public school environment under the current condition.
Yep.
Well, let me, okay, go ahead, John, if you want to. I just want to throw this in. We can discuss all day long as to the values of the secular versus the church-oriented schools. But it all goes back to one simple word, parenting.
Parents, yep.
It's all about parenting 101. And I can honestly say that things have changed so drastically since I was in student in school, elementary, high school, whatever. My parents ruled the roost, and it was yes, sir, and no, ma'am, and we've lost that in our society.
And also, I'll throw this out because in my experience as a pastor, congregational pastor, especially my larger congregation experience, I used to talk to the parents because I did both Bible study. I taught kids in certain classes and teenage kids, et cetera. And then I taught parents in adult Bible study classes. And I would often say to the parents, when church is over on Sunday and you guys get in the car, and whether you're going to go to have pizza or whether you're going to go home to take the roast out of the oven, on your way home, how many of you parents ask your children, well, what did you learn in Sunday school today? Because one of the things that I tried to impress on our Sunday school teachers was that we should be teaching the same thing that coordinates with the process of the gospel and the things that are being taught from the pulpit as well, so that the children were learning something of value that they could implement in their life as they grew older.
Mm-hmm.
And many parents, interestingly to me, and I say this again with a broken heart, a lot of the parents would be at the church when they brought their kids to Sunday school. But also there were a lot that would drop their kids off and they would go somewhere and have donuts and coffee. Mm-hmm. And then they would come back and pick up the kids after Sunday school. And maybe they would attend class, maybe they wouldn't. And and I hate to say this as I don't want to paint everybody with the same broad brush on this issue, but this is, as you were saying, if we're not doing what we ought to be doing in the home, there's not going to be a whole lot of benefit on the outside.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems, and I think everybody will agree, is that we are teaching that the government now has to do the job of the parent.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And where my wife pointed this out to me is, well, now they're going to provide breakfast for the kids for school, and they have after-school programs, which I understand the need for that, but the government doesn't need to provide that. We need to get back to the parents being responsible and understanding that they're responsible. We've taught them that they're not. They don't have to be responsible.
Well, yeah, a guy by the name of Lawrence Reed, who writes for The Stream, he wrote an article, very interestingly. He said, big government, and this is the point of the article, big government equals bad government.
Mm-hmm.
And he used that concept to prove that what was being taught in the schools, driven by the attempt of government to control everything, is bad government, and it reduces the value and quantity. And we see that across the board, because we see kids that are unable to read, we see kids unable to cipher and do math and those kinds of things. But then what are the other things that are not being taught?
Right.
Is there anything in the schools that teach conduct, quality of relationships,
common courtesy?
Yep.
Yeah, those kinds of things. When I was in school, they did those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be called aside and say, what kind of a conversation was that you had, Alex? Or just because the guy was smart enough to you doesn't mean you had to go over and punch him in the nose.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the kind of, I don't know if that happens anymore.
Now we just film them with our phones.
That's right. Alex, I want to mention one other thing before we run out of time. And John and I were conversing about this in the first half of our podcast this afternoon. And you perhaps might have seen this individual on TV, former Army veteran and now going to school at SMU, Southern Methodist University in Texas. And in the course of the conversation about his future as far as being a graduate student, etc., he made the comment, he said, quote, "Our schools are making activists instead of Americans." Boy, did he hit the nail on the head.
Absolutely, because what they're doing is they're generating the negatives and uplifting the negatives about our country rather than the positives. One of the things is you keep teaching negatives to people, and they're going to have this attitude of what's it worth? Why should I strive for anything? There's a great sense of loneliness that's going on in our country as well. There's been studies done about students. A lot of students are having worries about suicide and those kinds of things. And those are all coming as a result of the fact that there's not a positive engendering in the educational process. And so what is happening at home? Are they being reinforced and strengthened at home as well? And yeah, I agree with you. Yes, there are positive things happening, and I don't want to take away from that. But at the same time, I think we've got to still get our focus straightened out here on what's happening.
Yep, be diligent. Yep.
Real quick, I want you to comment on this, and I've only got a couple of minutes left, but I feel like this is newsworthy right now. The United States Merchant Marine Academy in Kings Point, New York had, past tense, a great big mural painting on their wall. It was called Christ on the Water, and all of a sudden some liberal Democrats and liberals in general decided they didn't want that hung up on the wall anymore. For over 80 years, they demanded that it be taken down, folded up, and put in the basement. And with the Trump administration learning about this, and Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, etc., all of these people said nuts to that, and the painting called Christ on the Water is going back up on the wall. If you would, please, your comments.
That's exactly what needs to be happening. That's exactly the point. And the reason I say that is because there is a responsibility for us to exact or impress upon those around us the concept of righteous anger. We have that right. Jesus spoke to that issue. He addresses the hardness of hearts. He addresses the issues and the problems in Mark chapter 3. He talks about the foolishness of man. But Jesus himself addressed those things which were contradictory to quality of life based upon proper spiritual focus and faith. He attacked those people in the religious structure that were against his teachings, which of peace and love and compassion and understanding, and he exacted and showed righteous anger. We have the right to express righteous anger, and when things like this happen, where they want to take down those things which have become critically important to us in our society, we need to stand up righteously against those things and say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to put it back up. The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. Proverbs 15:28. And that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're dealing with.
And I think you would agree, it's like the song, "Onward, Christian soldier, and we'd better not keep turning the other cheek."
I agree.
You know, Pastor, I've asked you, and John and I both agree that you do such a wonderful job on this segment called Why Not God. We would, at this time, really appreciate another prayer for our nation, as you did so eloquently last week. So if you would, please, sir.
Heavenly Father, you tell us in Isaiah 41, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, and I will help you. I will uphold you by my righteous right hand. Heavenly Father, we need your right hand in all things and aspects of our lives today. Father, touch us with that right hand. Reach out to us and grab us by the heart, Lord, and draw us toward you, each and every one of us, good, bad, and ugly, all of those, Lord. We need your hand on all of those situations. We need to find peace in the hearts of man, peace that can be spoken between individuals, even when we disagree, that we disagree in peace and understanding with one another. Each person has their own right. We have freedom in this country, but that freedom does not deny us the right to stand up for righteousness and truth. And I pray, Lord God, that you would give us strength, just as you say in Proverbs 15, to understand and speak boldly and righteously, and understand that you are with us, as it says in Isaiah, that you are our God and that you are with us. And as it says in John 15, as Jesus spoke out loud, without me, you can do nothing. I pray for these things in the blessed name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. In his name, amen.
Amen.
I really appreciate everything you do, Pastor Alex Lissau, back in Tennessee. And next week, I'll give you a little heads up. I want to talk about another very concerning topic that is growing, unfortunately, all across America, and that's the growing influence of Muslims in various cities. And like I said, that is growing. And I want to talk about the Mamdani situation back in New York City, etc. So we'll cover that next week. At this time, John and I are going to let you go, and I know you're having such a wonderful time with your treasure hunt, finding things you never knew that you carried back to Tennessee, and we wish you and Barbara the best. God bless you, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Zed. God bless you both. Love you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Pastor Alex Lissau, and of course, the segment called Why Not God? John, another great podcast, thanks to your technology. You're the expert.
I'm just sitting here pushing buttons, hoping I'm getting it right.
You know, you make me nervous over there. You're like Liberace touching all the keys, man. I don't know what you're doing half the time, but it all comes out great. We really appreciate it. One more time, John, tell everybody, if you would, about zebbell.com.
Zebbell.com, Z-E-B, Zeb. Bell, BELL.com. ZebBell.com. Just go there. Right on the home page, you'll see our smiling little faces right there right now if you're tuning in. Otherwise, look for us next week right there.
And John, we're not afraid. We will not be afraid to express our Christianity and also our viewpoints on various subjects that are happening in this great United States of America, and we welcome any and all comments on the podcast, Zeb at the Ranch. Yeah. Thank you so much. And on behalf of John and I, we say adios amigo and have a good one till next Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.